I thought we would start with some of the challenges we encountered thinking about capacity and staffing. The challenges we were encountering was how can our delivery teams both identify who has enough work, who doesn't have enough work, as well as when can we tell sales that we will have capacity to do the next thing they're selling. So what we did is we did a few things. One, inside Workfront, we created a set of custom fields that we use on a task. So they just sit as tasks on the project. And what that allows us to do is we can do reporting based on attributes we put on the task and see where our needs are. But it also lets us do what we call the soft booking. So this is outside of Workfront's assignment functionality. It's a lookup field that allows us to say, hey, Jason's going to be slotted into this, and then we can add that in from a reporting perspective to where things are going. Questions about the problem we were working to solve?
No, I think that makes sense.
So then where this allows us to roll up, and I'm going to show a couple different views of this data. This report here lets us have a bird's eye view of how much staffing is needed for each of our product lines. So you can see our product we call prior auth has a significantly heavier staffing model or needs than the one we call claim status. And a lot of this is around how can I visualize and consume the data as a leader a whole lot quicker, or how can I slice and dice it? So another way I could look at the same data, this one is starting to look at individual people. And this is pulling off of some of that assignments work that Workfront does natively, but then starts to group it into a way I can visualize it. Up here with Adrian, she's not in a role that we would assume is getting staffed to a customer or to a specific project. So that makes sense to me that there's nothing there. And what I'm going to see is that Andrea has staffing that is somewhat over that 1 FTE. It kind of washes.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, I come over to Alex and Anise, and what I see is that their staffing is well over 2 FTEs.
Literally off the chart.
Yes. So they're either significantly drowning, and I may need to do something from a staff manager perspective, or we have significantly overcredited them with work.
Yeah.
And so a view like this was allowing our team leads to be able to come in and quickly understand what's going on and quickly do some assessment. And this gives me the ability to have quantitative data to have that discussion.
Sure.
One subtle point that we added, Dustin, to get this glorious view was to fix the y-axis so that you're comparing apples to apples across every user. It immediately gives the viewer a sense of who's busy and who's not because of the area that's covered. And then, Jason, I was just going to ask if you could elaborate on the what we're stacking by here, since we'll probably be stacking by different things in the meeting.
Sure. We are stacking by projects. So we have it built out so we could group it by projects, by customers, because sometimes a team member works on multiple projects for a same customer. So we can also do it by products or groupings of products that we've done. That's one of the things that I found really helpful as we were rolling this out and starting to use some of it was ways that I could slice and dice it on the fly. We talk about some of the walls that we hit inside Workfront natively. This type of let me try something and then come back. Oh, that's not quite the story that I'm trying to answer. So let me tweak it and then come back and about a minute later be able to see it differently is something that is helpful as we're thinking big picture and how do we summarize.
Is this a report that it pulls in kind of like PDF form, or is this an interactive chart that you're able to like drill down into and things?
The graphs are a PDF, but we built in some links. So like if I get down into an individual's here for Alex, I can jump back into Workfront from that PDF to exactly where it's at.
Very cool. I would imagine when you identify one of these individuals who's looking as if they're way overworked, you would want to then dig into that information.
And another thing that we've done, this blue that is on him, we concatenated multiple fields together to create these labels. So this is telling me that the team has failed to close out the staffing assignment to Alex, even when the project canceled. We also started to look at how can we note valuations around the customer to help with some prioritization.
You can toggle on whether you include those tentative soft bookings or exclude them and just work with the hard assignments, either of or both.
Help me understand the soft booking piece again. Is that for projects that it's a possibility that they'll be working on?
In our world, it's a lot about that planning for staffing. So, and we also wanted it not to use the default assignments because we didn't always want staff to know what we were thinking about brainstorming for their next assignment. And not because we were trying to be hiding it, but because we didn't want to take them on the staffing roller coaster that occurs
Sure.
for stuff that's not sold yet. I'm sure that you all recognize from the sales world is just the way it works.
Yep. Yep. If your staff is consistently seeing that come and go on their potential projects, then that could be both frustrating and like distracting to them. So that makes complete sense. I like that. It's very cool.
If you have someone who's a critical resource, so everybody wants to grab, let's say Malcolm, because he's the best at whatever he's doing, they can all put their reservation request in by soft booking his time. But when that then gets stacked and you can visualize how much it blows past his capacity, then before any real assignments have occurred, you can have a sensible discussion, prioritizing which of those happen in which order, which projects might need to be delayed, which ones could be substituted, and you could swap Doug in for Malcolm and have the progression continue even if it's not their first pick, and so on. And all that can happen without the myriad of bells and whistles firing off like rockets within Workfront when you make an assignment. Like that needs to show up on people's to-do lists and shows them as overbooked within Workfront on the workload balancer. So this soft booking concept, I think, is really it's obviously very advanced, but I think it's a real component. It's a missing piece to resourcing that full credit to Jason. He came up with the whole concept, and then we just folded it into our solution here.
Could there be like a stack rank as those come in based upon like criteria of that project? So
we have another solution that dovetails into capacity charting called Heatmap, and it does exactly that. It lets you, it requires that you prioritize your projects, whether it's with the Workfront built-in simple priority, or you can use the portfolio optimizer to pick and choose which projects are in which order. And then it takes the same information and stacks them from the bottom up in order of priority. So as you get higher and higher in the stack, adding more projects on, those are your less important ones, so that eventually when you get to the point that you've run out of capacity, it goes from green to yellow. And once you have another project beyond that, it shows any remaining ones in red. And if you imagine zooming out and looking at a whole fleet of people, you can quickly spot these hot spots where there's projects that are on someone's plate that, according to their capacity, they're not going to get to, and you'll be able to identify by clicking the red ones which are the projects that are likely to slip because of that priority. So what's your time horizon for projects, and can you remind me how important that was back in the day when we were rolling this out, please?
Yes, so we wanted to be able to clearly see more than 12 weeks. And so that was, Dustin, you may remember some of that conversation with the work load balancer pieces that we have to be able to see more than a 12-week window, because we think in multiple quarters and years perspective. So right now we're in the middle of the year, so reports are running for the calendar year to see historical plus future, but we've been able to use that to see more of a relative window. So several months in the past and several, like 6 to 9 months in the future.
Very cool. This is impressive.
Thanks, man. This is years of work, by the way.